Okay. Yeah, I would just love to hear about your experience and your healing journey.
Yeah, where do I start with that one? Well, yeah, I basically get kept quiet about the illness that I was living with. I pretty much kind of knew the whole time from the age of 18. I worked out in my early 20s what caused it. But I kept very quiet about it. And now I reflect back, I was keeping it hidden for 20 years. And it kind of conveniently worked so that it only appeared on a weekend and it was more in my time.
Mhm.
Certain things would happen. The kind of most severe and agonizing extent would happen either in the middle of the night for several hours, or on a Sunday, something like that. So it would be indescribable and unimaginable in terms of severity, pain wise. But then the next day it would be like nothing had happened. So I
Wow.
always felt like if I rocked up and tried to explain to someone exactly how bad it is, it would be like, well, everything was fine after,
Yeah, get over it.
the next day. Yeah. So I did what I thought you were supposed to do, and I went and reported it to the doctors over and over and over and over and over again. And basically, long story short, 2 decades later in 2018, I found myself completely disabled by it, and I couldn't keep quiet about it anymore because I could no longer drag myself out of bed to work. And that, for me, now I look back as well, was my awakening as well. Like, I'm so thankful for that now, because at that, I know it's not the same, it's different for wildly different for everybody, but now I look back, I really woke up to the severity of the illness and the seriousness of it, even though no one else did around me, no specialists, loved ones. It was just me waking up going, holy shit, this is serious and it's severe. And I've known this for a long time, and no one else, it's not affecting anyone else. It's affecting me. So I think I'll take back the reins now.
Yeah.
And that is what happened, essentially. I mean, obviously, it was very painful. It was very uncomfortable. It was terrifying. But I did essentially take back the reins of creation for my own life and health and healing in and amongst the collapse, the collapse of my life as I knew it. Lost my career, my income, my job. My dad had just died 3 months before as well. Um, but yeah, it's something I really see. Is I started drowning out the noise, tuning into my own inner knowing, got clear on my needs for the first time in my life. Started working out what it was that I really wanted and what truly mattered. And yeah, it all started from there, really.
Yeah. So what was the key thing that really was like, okay, I've got to do something? And what was like the first thing you did that really kind of opened your mind to what had happened and what you needed to do?
So I think for me, the catalyst was work being ripped away from me. My whole identity, it felt like such a great height to fall from. And it was an enormous loss in my life. And I had no idea at that stage that that was grief, and that was why I was finding, because that was a very difficult path to be on, losing that. But at the same time, it really opened up the space for me to drown out the noise and connect to the messages. I knew stress was killing me.
Mhm.
I knew change had to happen. I knew it was severe. I knew migraine was what it was. I knew that some um, concussion in my teen years had been the root cause, not necessarily to all of it, but to
Mhm.
a certain aspect of it at the very least. And yeah, I randomly searched a meditation, a migraine meditation, in that first weekend of realizing I could no longer get up. I could no longer function as a human being or give off the impression that I was functioning anyway. And that migraine meditation, you had to imagine you were guided to imagine the pain as a color.
Mhm.
Um, for me, the pain was very red. It was very angry. It was very fuzzy, and I was holding on to it tightly, very, very, very tightly. And I did the same meditation the week after, and the color turned blue. And all of
Wow.
a sudden, for energetically, I was no longer holding on so tightly. Now, let's be clear. My life was still a shit show.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. In the 3D, in the
yeah.
physical, my physical
It
realm,
takes time to catch up to the mind.
it was still as it was, but the relationship to it changed.
There you go.
That was the key. I was no longer holding on so tightly, and something had awoken within me. And I'd been questioning my doctors anyway. There has to be another way. Surely there's another way. Tell me there's another way. And they were like, oh, yeah, I have sex 3 times a week and get on the drugs. And I was told that that was the only way.
Oh yeah.
But with all due respect, if that worked, I took a lot of drugs and had a lot of sex. I wouldn't have been in that position in the first place if that stuff worked.
I heard having sex or having an orgasm actually does help with migraines. That is documented, so it's kind of interesting.
Louise Hay talks about that, doesn't she?
Yep.
Masturbation. Do you know what I have to say? It. I'd love to meet some people where that did work for. I mean, you've still got to try, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right.
I gave it a good try, and I didn't know if in the end. I don't know. I don't know if you know more about this or if anyone else does, but I'd love to understand more about it because eventually I was able to release a lot of shame in that area, kind of self-pleasure, sexuality, masturbation. And that did go on to help, but it wasn't. I know Louise Hay talks about actually being able to abort a migraine attack there, and then that wasn't something that ever happened for me personally. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot about metaphysically. The migraine is about self-criticism, right? And it makes sense that it was releasing when you release the shame, right?
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah. It's kind of like autoimmune, right? The body's attacking itself, right? The mind is attacking, right? The body, the experience that you're creating. So that's kind of the root metaphysical cause. Of course, we're complicated. So there's, environmental, there's all the past trauma, right? All of those things. But, all the way through it, like you said, really is just like making that decision to break from fear and resistance,
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
yourself as you're just pure energy. You're just consciousness, expressing, right?
Yeah.
And if everyone can do that, I mean, you're just living a completely different life. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I found.
What was the
That's what.
reaction from your friends and family when this, new you
Oh
emerged?
yeah, they had not seen this version of me before, so they weren't
Yeah.
happy. I was told that I was selfish,
Mhm.
that I didn't know what
Yeah,
I
I
was
love that one.
doing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that I didn't know what I was doing. I was too vulnerable to make decisions about my own health, and that did make it a great deal harder.
Yeah.
That did make it a lot more challenging. Thankfully, I'd woken up to such an extent I continued on anyway, but I do remember that being very, very difficult. Yeah, it caused a lot of frustration and a lot of anger as well because no one could see or understand or have any inkling of what it was like to have everything collapse around you and physically be unable to get out of bed and then to be told that it doesn't help.
That's, to me, I mean, that's like the loneliest space to be in such pain and to have
Mm,
everyone around you. How can they not see it? Right?
mm,
I mean, it's like you're just invisible almost. And,
yeah,
and it's very, very isolating. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so tell me about your path and journey then. How on earth
Yeah.
did you get into all
So,
of this, Karen?
I mean, I had kind of a mini awakening in my 30s when I went through a ton of horrible things with my death of my father, the
Mm,
loss of my marriage, and then my mother 6 months later was in an Alzheimer's home at 64.
wow.
Almost bankrupted by my ex-husband. So that was like kind
Mm,
of learn the power of thinking positively, right? Manifesting, right? Right. Really looking at what my goals were and how to obtain them. But that was just a foray into that. And I did improve my life tremendously. I got remarried in 2012. And then we moved to Copenhagen, Denmark. And I was like living this beautiful dream life with my kids. His were adults. Lived there for 4 years, and then I hadn't worked in 4 years and he was older. So I was like, well, we need to move anyway. So I moved to Seattle and got a job. And then he joined me 6 months later. And then in the beginning of 2020, when COVID happened, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And it was really horrible times. I was working for the government. So I was working, as a first responder. I was doing crisis communications work, and then dealing with this diagnosis. Um, what happened with me was really like things I didn't even know about or believe in, honestly, because I've always been really open and very curious as a child about what happens when you die. I knew there was more to life, and I knew this was not necessarily me in this form. So I've always been into the spiritual, but you have to earn a living. I never thought
Mm,
I could, move in that way. I didn't know I had any intuitive abilities. I mean, I thought everyone saw what I saw, right? I just didn't think, right, anything about it. And I was in the kitchen one afternoon, just listening to music, cooking dinner. I was caramelizing onions of all things. And all of a sudden, I had this intense energy move up my spine, shoot out my crown, and it felt like all the love in the world was exploding within inside of me. It was like an orgasm beyond orgasm and a
wow.
physical shift so huge. I didn't know what it was. And I described it to a friend of mine who's very spiritual, and she's like, "Oh, that sounds like a Kundalini awakening." And I was like, "Oh my God, what is that?" So I
Wow.
looked into that, and I had another one about a month later. So I think for me, it was
Wow.
preparing me because I had, a traumatic childhood. It wasn't the worst. It certainly wasn't the best. There was abuse in the family, and
Mm,
alcoholism. So I think, and I had not done any really healing on myself, some therapy, but not much at all. I had suppressed everything. Like everything's great, right? Don't complain, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's how work through it, work hard, serve.
Yeah.
Serve,
Hmm.
your needs don't matter. That's what
Yeah.
so I've always been the pleaser, the server, the doer. So it allowed me to help my husband transition in a way that I would never probably been able to do. So it just brought so much love. I was like high on love and life for a good, I don't know, 6 months. And he died, 9 months later. And it was this beautiful transition at home with the family there. Um,
Mm,
and we didn't get last words because he didn't speak the last couple of weeks. And so he was busy getting things in order. We never really had any closure. And we had some things to close on. And
mm.
so I was like, well, I'm going to get my manifestation back on because I'm going to talk to you. Whether it's through a medium, me, I don't care, right? And so I just literally went into that mode of just seeing my life communicating with him. And it was only not even 2 months later, I was on my couch one night and I had a small votive candle lit. All of a sudden, a flame burst out of that thing out of the blue outside the vase. And I was like, what is that? And it was like one of those spiritual experiences that you're like, no one's going to believe this. I
Mm.
heard, pick up your iPhone. And I looked at the candle and there was this blue orb hovering over it. And I would move the iPhone and it would move. So I thought, oh, it's something to do with the iPhone. It's reflecting, it's not him, but I knew it was. I sat there filming it, talking to him for like 2 hours.
Oh
And
my
I just
God.
started seeing things, seeing it more energy, and then hearing him. And then before long, I didn't need the iPhone. I saw the blue orb without it. I saw his energy, and more impressions started coming in. And then I went to a medium to verify all of this because again, I don't trust myself and I want it to be real. I don't want to fake anything. So I was like, I really tried to disprove everything. So basically, we started our communication and he's like my guide on the other side. And for me, what I did when he was dying, I was still going through severe menopause. Like I had lost 40% of my hair. I had anxiety and depression my whole life. I had horrible, horrible constipation. It was so bad, like nothing would fix it. I had rosacea. I
Mm,
was just really my mind was like I could not concentrate to save my life. I really thought I was going to lose my job because I could not function.
mm,
And so I just started getting kind of like almost like the higher self just flowing in me and giving me information about how to clear these things. And it was really all based on things that they're out there, right? Breathing, mindfulness. What do you believe? What is your
mm,
body saying
mm.
to you? Right. And so I started doing these practices on myself as a test subject and really visioning, right, all of this passing through. And, that was what, that was 53, then I'm 58 now. And now I'm like, I've never felt better. I've more alive now and more joy, but I had to go through that to get to the other side. And so I may not have my husband in physical form, but we still talk every day. He's with me. I feel his energy. I see his energy. And then I started working volunteer, got a Reiki master's and medical intuitive training. And then I just started working for free with people just to try my methods. And they started working. And then I just took a leap of faith in 2023 and quit my job, which was crazy.
Wow,
Right?
amazing.
Really bad. And so I've been building my business. I've just started now because it works. I've just started marketing now. So I have a Substack, I have a Medium with more followers there. And I'm writing about my experiences because for me, my whole fear has always been to be seen. And because I was never like really felt seen as a child or celebrated or wanted really. And so I was always in the back, right? I'm gonna write about people, but I'm in the back, on the back seat. And so getting out and doing social media, and I haven't done anything on video yet because that's my next hurdle, right? Because it's like being seen, and then I'll be
Wow.
judged, and then I could be a failure, right? So I'm now confronting what I have found really when you confront your deepest fears, that's where your core strength is, right?
Right.
And then you open up to things that you would never have known. Like so much joy can be found in the darkest of experiences.
Mhm.
And that's what I love helping people see that they're powerful. That, right? I don't ever, there are a lot of people who say they're healers. I'm definitely not. I'm a guide that helps people see
Yeah.
their power and
Mm.
reignite it, right? That's what I do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited to meet other people like you that are doing this work and from
Oh,
their
shit.
experience, it's fascinating. It's like life is never dull now.
We share so many similarities because similar with my dad dying, I didn't know I was channeling him at the time. Um, I was writing in my journal and I didn't look back on that journal for years.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was writing, I can hear my dad saying, you know what you're doing, do it, keep going, do it. And then I would chat to him saying, oh, I'm moving back to Yorkshire, Dad, can you believe it? And it was like I could hear him say, yes, love, and then um, and then eventually I realized, and I come to see in the same way as yourself with your husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's acting as a guide. I saw a fellow Substack writer, Emma Simpson, author of Lemon Soul. She spoke to her dad on the other side and asked her for some information about her books. I thought, I like the sound of that. I'm going to do that. And I was like, what impact are my books going to have on the world, Dad? And it was like catastrophic and cataclysmic. I was like, in what way, Dad? And he was like, the way we look at health, healthcare, diet, malfunction, our way of being, seeing, and believing. And I was like, really? I knew I was here to talk about our way of seeing, being, and believing. That's why we connected, Karen, wasn't it, on your
Yep.
post about beliefs? It's
Yep.
been such a particular interest of mine in the role that our beliefs play in our wellness or lack thereof. So I knew that bit, but I didn't know about the health, the healthcare, the diet, and the malfunction. And that's really been a huge guide for my book, and has come out. I'm still in the editing phase as part of due to be published. Um, but that's come out as the strongest bit, as the section that I've written on the illusion of function and the intelligence of malfunction. And without that connection with my dad, I wouldn't have had that. Actually, one further on that was a conversation with our ancestors. They're always giving us gifts and cheerleading me on massively on this journey. So I was like, one day I was on a journey, a bit of a journey with them, saying, well, you're always giving me gifts. What gift would you like from me? And they asked for the truth of independence. And that chapter comes later in the book and is also pretty big.
Yeah.
Pretty big,
Yeah.
pretty paradigm shifting. And without that connection, the book wouldn't have that kind of
Yeah.
spine to it, I guess.
It's such a paradigm shift, right? Like we can connect with anyone, anything if we allow ourselves, right, to do so and we believe we can. And that's what's so powerful to me. It's like I never thought in a million years I would be channeling, I'd be doing this work, or it's even possible or real.
Mm.
And to just start with an open mind, right? And start doing and practicing. That's all it is, right? Creating space for yourself to feel your multidimensionality, feel your power as a creator. And really anything that gets in your way is you. There is no
Yeah,
other
I learned
block.
that the hard way. I learned
Yeah.
that the hard
I've
way.
been
Yeah,
my big block my whole life.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. I got into the belief systems reading. Are you familiar with Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth?
no.
Oh, wow. You would really like that work. Because that's all he talks about is belief systems.
Oh,
She
wow.
was like one of the most remarkable channelers from the 60s. She died, I think, in the 80s. But if you just Google Seth Speaks, you'll find a bunch of stuff about that. The books are sometimes hard to read because the way they've done it is they write notes about the experience while they're channeling with the channeled information. So you can just skip over that inner dialogue and just read what Seth is saying. But basically, that's where like most of my work with my clients is about now. What do you believe about your health? What do you believe is possible?
Mm.
What do you believe about yourself? When did you start believing that and why? Right? Practicing discernment. Is it true or is it a story? And then that story becomes your energy, it becomes your focus. And now, right, with the reticular activating system in the back of the brain, you see it everywhere. Evidence of your beliefs is now
Mm.
generated in the field.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now you're in the loop of fear. Like most people, right? There's two ways I look at you could approach every response that you ever put out is either love or fear. That's it. Those two. And so you have the choice, right? What do you want to respond with, love or fear? But it's not as easy as that sounds when you have been wired that you're not good enough, you're not special, you better serve, right? Sit down, shut up. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's how, I was raised in the 70s. There were still, I mean, we were paddled in school, paddled at home, right? Not,
Mm.
do not talk during lunch. It's like, it's insane when I look back at my experience not that long ago when I was a child in the 70s, how brutal it was.
Mm.
And how all of that creativity, all of that love is just suppressed. And now the nervous system is in hypervigilance mode, and that's really what happened to me. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
always scanning for danger, being rejected. And it's sad to have to wait 50 something years to know these things, but at least I do, right?
Mm.
I do now. And it's like that's really what's changed my whole experience. It's like anything is possible, right?
Same. Yeah, I believe that too. Well, this was one of the interesting things. I've always had this belief that anything I put my mind to is possible.
Yep.
And then just, in this journey, I'm like, where did that come from? And then I've written a chapter from a book called The Power of Beliefs. And it actually came from the movies. We were shown quite a lot, and then because I was a child of the 80s, so Back to the Future, Karate
Yep.
Kid, Never
Yep.
Ending Story. These were the movies that taught you that anything was possible, and not necessarily all about the talent, but about the courage and the creativity and the belief, um, and the applying yourself and the focus and all the rest of it. So that's where I believe that. But then also digging into it, I learned from the women around me, that they all felt old in the 30s or too fat and to be
Yes.
quiet and to be small and to fade into the to fade into the background. So that was really interesting, a really interesting chapter to draft around that, because it was like, oh, hang on a minute, there's all these different beliefs coming from different places. And one of the beliefs that activated when I, woke up to the severity of the illness was I matter, my health matters. And I
Yeah.
hadn't let myself like that for the 38 years beforehand. I treated myself like I didn't matter and I didn't care about myself and I didn't care if I lived or died. I just didn't, I felt like I didn't matter that much. But that was such a big turnaround, like writing that in my journal. I matter, my health matters, my body is asking for changes. I know change is what is needed. I know it's going to take me a long time because I waited until the point of full collapse. But yeah, I
Yeah.
love the side of it.
Yeah. I mean, when you say that, I mean, it sounds so insane. Like, my needs matter. Well, of course they do. I mean, it's like, I remember when the Black Lives Matter thing came out, I was like, oh my God, that sounds horrific. Of course they matter. It's like, wow, we don't ever like just really stop and like feel, right? I mean, my whole life has been about thinking and producing. And
Mm,
I was completely cut off from my intuition of feeling. And I still to this day, because I've been so programmed, I have to like really set space and time to slow down and connect to the heart space to
mhm,
like, okay, what do I want to do here? Right. And when we allow ourselves time to check in with our bodies and our minds and really work from that space of grounded, right, coherent channel, then I mean, then really, really the possibilities, right, are endless of what you can create. But most of our capitalistic society is so focused on consuming, and it takes up so much time and energy that what's left at the end of the day, right,
yeah.
really create with. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we learned a lot of that from school, didn't we? I know I've just launched a new free monthly offering called the Wellness Maid. It's the fourth one I've run, and it's the second time I've been triggered in my own offering by one of my
Oh,
own
I read that. Yeah, I loved your letter too.
read that the how
Yeah,
to what can be undone
yeah,
and how to unravel without falling apart. And
yeah.
I turned it into a writing piece, but like just that realization that a lot of the conditioning came from school. You get up, you get
Mm.
dressed, you go to school, you sit behind a desk, and you perform, perform, perform.
And you're
You
tested. Yeah,
yeah, you forget
yeah.
about your life. You pee in your own time, play time. You eat when you're told you can eat, not when
Hmm.
your body guides you or alerts you or lets you know. It's and just subliminally, you're receiving all these rules, all these messages, um, all these expectations and beliefs. Not necessarily your own, or even necessarily intended, but we're receiving anyway.
Yeah. I mean, your whole personality literally is a pile of belief systems and experiences. It's not really you. You can
Mm,
choose, anyone can choose to wake up tomorrow and be someone completely different, right? But we get shaped by these beliefs, and then the body believes the beliefs, and now we're locked into a lower frequency that is really shortchanging us, right? We're not living to the potential, or maybe even doing the things that we enjoy
mm,
because we've been told we can't do that. That's not good for you, right? Instead of, the approach of really the Montessori approach is probably the most, I think, conducive to freedom of expression, right?
mm,
Soar with what are you passionate about? What are your strengths? And let that child, move in that way. But yeah, school is, you know, it's better now, I think, probably, but it's still, right? It's the US anyway, the public schools are totally underfunded.
mm.
And it's still teaching to the test, not creativity. And so yeah, it's really stopping at some point in your life and is this really me? Is this who I want to be? And then if it's not, slowly, what are things I can do today that get me closer to the version of me that's ready to emerge, right? It's those small little steps. I think that's what gets kind of whitewashed in the spiritual kind of, space, where it's like just manifest harder or whatever. But really, what has to happen first is the body has to feel safe and
Mm-hmm.
secure. And
Yeah.
you can't manifest, right, abundance from a space of scarcity that's your frequency. You've got to be, you got to slowly up it, right, to get to that space of feeling like you said, I matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so important. So I think one of the biggest things to healing really is examining your belief systems. What do I believe? I have clients that don't believe they can be well. I mean, that's a huge block then, right? If you can't believe you can be well, then that's the resistance, right?
Yeah, and I got so far in my own journey as well. So I believed that I could get well, and the research all kind of pointed in that direction, certainly to its possibility, at the very least, in any case. And then about 4 years in, I actually realized I couldn't visualize. So I'd got pretty well by that point, a chunk of the time. Um, but I realized that I couldn't visualize myself well, particularly over my period,
Hmm.
when I was the most still left severely ill. And that was really interesting because I believed, I believed, I believed, I believed, I researched, I understood, I had all the knowledge, all the academic level side of it, but yet still I couldn't visualize it. And I've only just, I mean, that was 2022 when I made that realization. I've only just in the last month been able to visualize myself well. It just came to me in a vision, walking in a field, just walking as my period was starting, and just allowing that release and that flow and just feeling kind of like free and light and easy. So yeah, there's such a lot to it, and
There
it's
is. And the thing is, it's like what I noticed about myself is, I'm really goal oriented and into production. So I've had to like this year, I'm learning to surrender more and let go. I've even stopped like making to-do lists, which is like my joy, scratching that off when I'm done. And so I'm just like, what am I passionate about today? And let me focus on that. Obviously, if you have clients or whatever your job is, you have to do that. But we have choices in how we approach our day, right?
yeah,
And I noticed when I started focusing on setting my intentions of how I wanted to experience the day, it would kind of follow suit, almost like magic. Like, oh, I say this is going to happen, and it does, right? Because there's something to that. I believe this day is going to be one that's positive. I'm going to have good experience with people and things like that. And so it's it's interesting that we're never really done. So I'll reach a goal and I'll be excited for a split second, and then I'm on to what's next. And
yeah,
the thing is, there's always a next. Like we're not done. Even when we transition, we're still, my husband says, well, I'm like, when I die, I'm so excited to get all the answers. And he's like, well, you won't get all the answers. He said, there's still things you don't know. And
mm,
there's really not much difference other than the fact that what we think and feel, we can manifest instantaneously because we don't have a nervous system, we don't have a body. So thought forms, everything becomes part of your experience immediately. Um, Here, it takes longer to manifest and materialize because we're in the third dimension. So
mm.
I feel like, okay, well, I'm just then again going to live in the moment because I've been living in the future really more than the past for me. I'm
Oh yeah,
constantly looking at what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. Am I meeting expectations? I didn't even know I was silently grading myself until recently. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I, oh my God, I'm grading myself. You know? And it's like that's not gonna help, right? It's just like live in the moment, do your best and explore. That's what we're really
mhm.
here to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, how is mindfulness or meditation? How do you work that into your day and practice? And what did you notice when you really started doing that? Like you talked about the meditation of the healing.
Oh, I've had some epic, deep, 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 deep healing through meditation many times. So I started with that one in 2018 and just kind of dipped in and out of it and started doing yoga. And of course, meditation is a part of yoga. And it was really in the first lockdown in 2020, in the first UK lockdown, I was entirely on my own. So I had, and my work, I just started generating, I'd lost it. I went on to lose my income for the second time in 2 years. So I had no work, no one around me. So I just started meditating well, not all day, every day, but just throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I found a particularly deep healing meditation on YouTube. A lot of them I've done a free on YouTube. And I received healing to my brain multiple times energetically over the first lockdown. What's interesting was that took 2 years to manifest physically, and the way it manifested was tingling at
Yeah.
part of my head, just one part at a time. I still experience that tingling now. I received it on the back of my head on Friday, and I feel for the first time that actually I have no attachment at all to any traumas, any past experiences, not just physical past hurts, emotional hurts. That's just a release I've had on Friday, but on and off all this time. So I'd say from the first lockdown in the UK, that's when I started meditating morning, throughout the day, evening. I don't have any set times, any set rules. It just kind of flows throughout the day. And I'd reached such a point in my healing journey anyway that I had to surrender to the volume of rest that I needed and sleep. And it was a lot. So much so that when I only ended a few years later, when I only slept 1 hour a day, I missed those days where I had more sleep. I would sleep between work, between appointments, between this, between that. And yeah, when it reduced to an hour a day, so goodness knows how much I was having. So around those times, I'd just be meditating all the time. Like meditation's been, such a big part. And loads of activations I've received in meditations, loads of heart healing, gifts. All sorts of epic journeys. I've loved it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah.
A lot of
It's
it.
amazing what you can do. Like some of the things that I've experienced that I'd never in a million dreams years thought were going on these guided journeys with my husband. And he's like, we can go anywhere together. And I was like, really? And so I, lay down and I just clear my mind and then I say, I'm ready. And then a movie plays and I don't know what I'm going to see. And it is epic. And a lot of times I was thinking when this early on, I was like, well, it was just me doing it all, right? And so I would go to my medium and I would validate it all. And then I started asking my husband for what I call touch confirmation. So,
Mm.
and I would say what I saw, and then I said, if that is correct, touch my forehead, with your energy paw. And literally, like it's like tingling and a melting over my face like
Wow.
really intense. So it was a thing. And then now we do that once in a while, but we
Wow.
create our world, right? There's no difference. And you can escape and you can create these spaces, right? Because every time we do that and our heart is open, you can't see it, but there's thought forms, right? It's in the energy field. Like you go into a room, right? And maybe someone was arguing and so you can feel that energy, right? And so that's the thought form structure of the fear. And same for love. You go into a space or a person. And so that's what we're creating. We just can't see it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Until it materializes because we've been in that frequency. We've been nurturing it, like you said, your vision, and then one day you wake up and oh my God, there you are in the field. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Amazing.
I know. Yeah. So for your business, tell me a little bit about what you do and what you're passionate about.
So yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. So obviously, I lost everything in 2018, and then I retrained. So I set up a mobile beauty business because I needed to find a way to work around the illness, but also to keep a roof over my head and food on the table and stuff because I was on my own. So I did that. And then in the second lockdown, you were able to do yoga online, like training, yoga teacher training, um, which ordinarily you wouldn't have been able to do online. And I never would have made it in person. I actually went into a massive relapse between the first and the second lockdown. So I never would have made a teaching experience and studying qualification if I'd have had to do that in person. So that was incredible that that was accessible to me over the lockdown. I did my yoga teacher training, and then I came out the other side of the pandemic, and had been having bodywork massage therapy, you know, the trauma healing therapy. I had that every month in the end for 6 years, but about 2 years in, I trained to do it myself. And then I moved into a caravan. Like, I sold my apartment and moved into my caravan so I could keep prioritizing my health, and reduce the stress of having kind of rent and mortgage to pay. And then from there, I started doing day retreats, like just one-on-one or two-on-one day retreats. But it was a real surrender. You talk about surrender. It was a real surrendering, actually, because no sooner had I moved into that caravan than I launched my Substack blog and podcast platform. And I just felt like I was being guided to write, and for writing to be my main job. And I was kind of like, okay, I hear you. You're telling me to be a writer. I'm not going to earn any money for I don't know how long, but I'm just done with resisting the flow. I'm done with not listening. If you're guiding me to write, then I will write. And yeah, that's what I've done. And I've been writing my book, which I started writing just over 4 years ago. But I got so triggered in having to go back to the times that I'd endured, to the agonizing extent that I had. I found that very difficult to write about. Insights were coming through that I'd missed, and I know they're for the benefit of my audience, but that didn't make it less painful for me. So yeah, but in that triggered place, 3 years I couldn't write that book. I wrote a first draft of my book and I couldn't touch it for 3 years. But in that place, that's where Substack was born, and now I've got a blog and podcast platform, and I've been creating behind the scenes, and a bit like yourself when you were trialing everything and everyone for free just to like put it into practice. That's what I've been doing. I've just been putting it into practice, watching people experience these breakthroughs and activations, whilst being conscious of the power of it all. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. And the visibility, the fear of that, massive fear of repercussion.
I know.
So I went on a visibility journey with a visibility coach last year, and I am now visible for the first time with my offerings. Unbeknown to me, it's all become an ecosystem. So rather than promoting my creations with lack and scarcity and limitation, it's actually forming a circle of reciprocity and legacy. It's so important to me that my offerings are accessible. So I've made a selection of free and donation-based offerings, and then an annual membership, and all of those don't need to be complete. They will be run year to year, but they don't need to be completed in a year. You know, it might take someone a few years to work through them all, and they will lead to transformation of health, of life, of identity, getting to the root of everything, reclaiming ourselves and rising. So yeah, I do believe my book's going to lead to systemic change as well. Like, it's going to pave the entire pathway for all that. Well, it's come out as 5 pathways as my book. So my book is more or less there. I'm just kind of completing and editing it, getting it to beta reader stage. And yeah, everything's like, I just feel like I'm in my liftoff era now. I feel like I've reclaimed all parts of myself. I've just crossed a threshold, which I do believe is like the next stage. I've been in remission for about 2 years. So the next stage was to move through into living entirely symptom free, which I believed, I believed was possible.
There you go. Yeah.
And in the end, kind of a good few years into research, in the end, I believe that the books are paving the pathway, and they're actually showing us that there is this pathway that we can create and we can walk, with those who've been before us, and that actually this is a very possibility, and this is what we're on the journey of. This is what we're here for. This is, we're just in the early stages of trying to figure all this out and make sense of it all and experience of it all. And of course, we can only do that with privilege. That's something I've learned as well. My ancestors, they just simply couldn't do any of this work. Women didn't have their own bank accounts till 1975. You weren't allowed to buy your own home. I bought my own home. I was then able to sell it. I was able to make choices of living in a caravan because I didn't You know, there wasn't anyone kind of owning me or my assets and property. I was able to make those decisions, and yeah, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard, but it's possible.
It is, yeah. What do you think? Because, so, when you go into and you read, you're on Substack or Medium or just YouTube, it's really overwhelming all the messaging about healing, right? There's so many people
Mm.
out there. Like, I wonder sometimes, I have a free discovery call for 45 minutes, right, for my program because my program is not one and done because that's not how healing works, right? So you're with me for a while. And I wonder, like, when people book the discovery call and then decide to book, like, why, right? You're trusting someone, you have no idea, right? Maybe you look at some reviews, but at the end of the day, you don't know, right? And so when you look at all of that, like, what are the key things, maybe three things, like you talked about your pathways, that you feel are this is what works. When you cut out all the noise, what are the things that really move the needle for people to become their full selves?
Letting the body lead.
Mm.
Yeah, allowing the body to act as your guide. My body never took me in any wrong direction. It never made any mistake. It
Yep.
knew exactly what it was doing. It knew exactly what it needed. It knew exactly what it wanted. And thanks, thanks to the privilege that I did have, um, I was able to act on that. And even if I, find creative ways to bring in the support that I needed. So yeah, letting the body lead. Um, I mean, belief is obviously a big part of it. You know what you're doing. The power is within you.
Hmm.
And I believe a lot in the story as well. Like I believe our story is the medicine. I believe that it's in the power of our own story, the story that the body is trying to communicate to us then being able to voice that story and share that story. That is what I believe will lead to the change that we so desperately need to see, whether that's on a personal level in our own bodies and our own lives, but also on a collective level too. So yeah.
Yeah. The thing I found, like, I've ignored my body most of my life. I had some childhood health issues, but as an adult, pretty healthy. I've never had a surgery, delivered twins, that's it. Um, but I never was like, my body was just there. And it wasn't something that I loved or nurtured or paid attention to. And you think about it, this is like a living consciousness expression, right? It's an organism that's alive and it's supporting your experience here. And it should be your longest, best friend, you know, but we treat it like it's our enemy. And that's in conflict with who we are and what our body is. And so
Mm,
for me, my healing happened when I started listening to my body and
mm,
listening to the signals. And it's shocking how loud it can be in the intuitive space.
mm,
So going into when you're having a problem with, let's say, your knees, like, right, what maybe you're being rigid or stubborn or you're fixed,
mhm,
right? What
mhm,
you're not moving forward in life. There's so many things and that, spiritually, metaphysically, that the body you can decode. And I write a lot about this. What are the messages from the body? What are the questions
mhm,
that it's leading you to ask so you can clear that energy from your
yeah.
body, right? Because, every cell is a receiver. It's listening to your instruction, right?
Mm,
It's not listening to necessarily words, but it's the energy behind the words. So if
yeah.
you wake up, you're looking in the mirror, and you're saying, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm no one. Well, that's what the body's going to respond to.
That's how I used to speak to mine. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I started doing, mirror work a little bit, and I was like really amazed at how like intense it is to really get up close into a mirror and look in your eyes, right? And speak to yourself. I mean,
Mm,
it's powerful and it makes me cry just thinking about it, like how I never did that and I did it in such a negative way and
mm,
to release that and see the change. I'm just shocked because I wrote about this recently. My sister and I, when we were it was the 80s and we were teenagers and we look at our parents who were not healthy. Um, and we're like, what are we going to look like when we're 60? You know, what are our lives going to be like? And it's like, I didn't really have a great feeling for me. I was like, I'll probably dead before then.
Mm.
And now I'm like, I can't believe I'm a year out from 60. Like, I am shocked. Like, well, I feel better than I did at 28. I'm like,
Wow.
how can that be possible? Right?
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, anything is possible. But I also don't want to negate the people who have chronic illness that is not going away and they've tried everything under the sun. There's
Mm.
that other component of what the soul wants to experience. And this is my views, right? Coming into this world,
Yeah, we do.
right?
I've realised that myself. We do. I know my soul. I know my soul beliefs. You know, my soul believes that we can live a life free from disease, pain, and suffering. And my soul actively chose to take on what I have, the most painful experience a human can endure, which I had to receive multiple blows to the head and concussion a number of times to guarantee that I was going to get that. Um, and I was having an inner soul conversation last week through Rebecca Campbell's free offering that she does kind of seems to once a year. And my soul told me that it didn't know that it could heal post-concussion headache to the extent that I have. It just believed that it could. And I was a bit like, what? What? You didn't
Wow.
know? You took this journey on and you didn't
Yeah.
know? You just believed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of how it's worked out for me. I believed I could, so I did. Uh,
Hmm.
but I'm also very aware as well that we don't know the path that someone else is on. We don't
Right.
know the journey they're on. We don't know whereabouts they are. We don't know their soul beliefs or, their mission, their purpose, what they're, only they can know that. Only they can kind of connect inwards
Yeah.
and establish that for themselves. So yeah, I'm very aware of that
Yeah.
as well myself.
Yeah, and it's like that's why I work with people like I'm not telling you anything. Like I don't, right? Your guides are saying this, right? I
Mhm.
connect with their infinite self and I can share, but really it's all about what do you know, right? It's bringing out your power. You don't need a
Absolutely.
guru telling
Yeah.
you something. And it's a lot of people in this space where, they get attached to their clients, which we do, but it's like the whole goal is for the client to move on and now they're their own creator doing the work and maybe working with someone else in that way.
Yeah.
So it's not about attachment, right, and dependence on someone else to give you the answers because I mean all the answers are always within you. You
All the
just have
answers.
to
Well, this is it.
quiet the system down to listen and
Mm.
then work on the trust, which was my one of my big um pieces of
Trust is
resistance.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
trust has been a huge part of mine as well. And also what we want, because I read, oh gosh, what's she called? I haven't been entirely honest with you, the author, the comedian, Miranda Hart. So she wrote, I haven't been entirely honest with you. And it was so interesting reading her journey because she is talking about the deep end of the healing journey and all of the different, the self-love, the trust, all of the different the getting clear on the needs, what you want. There are so many common denominators that if we take the time to study people's journeys, we will pull on those threads and see that there are many different common denominators and that there actually is a pathway. And when she got clear on what she wanted, when I got clear on what I wanted to get well. And then when I really drilled down more, it was the freedom. I wanted the freedom to get well. That's what I wanted. She wanted to find love, bless her. She wanted to find love. So that helped me realize that actually that's the power of getting clear on what we want. Just because I wanted to get well and wanted the freedom to get well, that might not align for someone else. It might be something like Miranda Hart to find. It might be something completely different. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I read a brilliant book actually recently called Brilliant Imperfection. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a grappling with cure. And that author has cerebral palsy, and he was like, I'm not actually looking for a cure for this. I don't want a cure for this. Is a transgender, so had the sex change, so isn't for or against, but his book is so well researched, and he's not looking for a cure for cerebral
Yeah.
palsy. So, it's
Hmm.
so unique. It's so individual and unique.
Yeah. Because some of, the challenges with health or disabilities, it's like, there's more involved. What are you learning about yourself, but what are you also teaching others? There's that part of the soul's journey. So it's
Mhm.
much more intricate, and we won't really know, right? The person will know maybe when we transition, when you have the life review, you get to see. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I'm excited about I don't want to die today, but I'm not fearing death. Like, because I know
Same.
it's coming, right? And it's another part of the journey that's even more expanded. And
You can have a
reunite,
good
yeah,
death. And that's what we need to talk about and become aware of and
yes,
align with, really, I guess. We can have a good death. And I look
you
forward
can.
to that being a good death way down the line.
Yeah, we should have a whole discussion on that one. I mean, that
Yeah,
would be really good. But this has been really, really good. Thank you for sharing everything.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. Yeah,
I
but
wish
we're here for it.
it is. We are.